Welcome everyone to our live streamed event hosted by City Arts in Nottingham. We've been working in partnership with the Institute of Mental Health now for about 10 years, supporting and devising and curating exhibitions that highlight creative responses to mental health issues. Over the years, the exhibitions have grown in popularity. In fact, we've been a victim of our own success. We have a lot of applications now for our annual exhibitions, which is fantastic. Over the years, the exhibitions have grown, and in 2016, Susan Spangenberg was the first international artist to exhibit work with us and showcase their work at our open annual exhibitions at the Institute of Mental Health. This event is an introduction to the Institute of Mental Health and some of the work that they do, and also the opportunity to talk with artist Susan Spangenberg about her latest exhibition with us, Escaping Childhood. It's currently hosted on our website and will be available to view until July the 10th. We will put links into our chat function at the end if you want to have a look at that. Yes, as Elvira says, I think this is the exciting bit, really, talking to Susan. I'm really thrilled to introduce New York-based artist Susan Spangenberg to this talk today. Her exhibition, Escaping Childhood, contains brutally honest and true accounts of her lived experiences with mental health issues, and they continue to inform her creativity to this very day. So welcome, Susan, and thank you for joining us all the way from New York. We have the technology, and this is the wonderful thing at this point in time. So I'd just really like to start with you introducing yourself to everyone today.
I'm still kind of laughing at Elvira's kids. That's great. I feel like we should just have them come on because kids they have no filter. They're great.
This is very true. Mine are being quiet at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. I can't, yeah, we'll just see.
The highlight of it for me. Hi, my name is Susan, and I'm here in New York City. It's a 6-hour difference. Thank you, Kate, for having me. Thank you to the audience for being here. Thank you to the Institute of Mental Health and City Arts and everyone for putting this together for me. And thank you, Raw Vision Magazine, for plugging it. I feel very honored and grateful to have a solo show. It's a dream come true and not something that I thought would ever happen. So thank you very much. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I'd say that with my art, I tend to be very isolated. I self-isolate and I like to work alone. But growing up, art was something I always did, but I never thought of art as a career. I never thought of putting my work on walls and asking for money and all that stuff. So that really came about, the money aspect at least came about when I joined Fountain House Gallery in New York City, which is the premier gallery for artists with mental illness. So I'm very grateful to be there. And I'm also a member of ArtLifting, and they do corporate artwork. And so I have to thank them because they've helped me tremendously. But growing up, I wanted to be an actor when I was 13. So that growing up, art really wasn't an influence in my life. It was more actors, like screen icons and stuff. And my favorite actor growing up was Rod Steiger. And I think the theater still informs my work. And I see all the arts as connecting anyway. So yeah, where you guys are coming from the UK, I mean, I love the Zombies. A huge fan of the Zombies. Whenever they're in New York, I have to see them. I love John Lennon. He was a great influence in my work, even though he did music and stuff. Working Class Hero really influenced just, in particular, Mother. When I heard that song, I said, oh my God, he gets it. That's my issue. But yeah, for the most part, they've been actors and writers that have influenced me. and musicians, and not so much visual artists. I kind of live under the rock a little bit when it comes to that. It's only later on, like much later on, that, you know, here and there, if we take a school trip in high school, like once we took a school trip to the Met in New York, and like later in life, I go to the museums here and there, not a lot. So you know.
Well, that's great to hear about, you know, it gives us a kind of good understanding. I mean, you know, tell us a little bit more about the Fountains Gallery as well that you're connected to. How do they support artists?
Well, it's really helped my self-esteem, like being online and being on Artsy, and just feeling like I'm a part of a community, because when the Living Museum was my first artist studio and community, and when I lost that for like a long number of years, you know, the isolation really affected me, and just the whole drama that happened there. I'd love to go back to the Live Museum, but I don't know if that's possible. But I'm still grateful to have Fountain House Gallery and ArtLifting. And, you know, now I have a wonderful apartment and 2 cats and my partner. And that's one of my cats.
One there. Yeah. That was a good introduction.
Yeah, that's Skitsy. And my other cat is named Cray Cray. So
brilliant. Well, that's great. Moving on then, it would be great to learn a little bit more about your current exhibition with us, Escaping Childhood. And the idea really is for the audience, I'd like to show them some images as a selection from the exhibition. We can start off with one and then sort of work our way through. And then maybe if you just want to tell us a little bit about them. So I'm just going to start off with Obituary Landscape. So would you like to sort of tell us a little bit more about that, Susan, and where the thinking was behind that?
I think a lot of times I don't think, I just do stuff. This was originally the focal point of a mural inside the Living Museum, which was my first art studio, and it's an abandoned building on the grounds of Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, which is a state hospital where I was a patient. I was an inpatient and then outpatient. But while I was an inpatient, I did this mural. And later on, I kind of destroyed that mural. That's a whole story in itself. I destroyed the work and I left pieces of it there. But I recreated it in 1998 as a painting. And no 2 paintings are alike, but I'd say it's, you know, it's close. But there's the whole story of me just mourning for my twin brother's death. And yeah, I was just in a dark place in my life. And but going from the wards of the hospital to this sanctuary, really, where you could be an artist and paint, was just, it really just influenced. It gave me this freedom to work, and really just starting doing big work. So for the first time, this was like the first big piece I ever did. And it's great to work big because you have all this freedom. It's actually harder to work small. It's easier, I think, to work big.
I mean, I'm really interested. So I think you might have created this painting as part of a sort of process for you in exploring arts and creativity. I mean, do you find it a good way of expressing feelings, and do you sort of work creatively, thinking about topics and subjects, or as you say, is it more sort of spontaneous than that and organic? Does your work happen organically?
Yeah, I'd say it's organically. It's very impulsive. I mean, sometimes I don't know most of the time I don't know how a painting's gonna end, if it's gonna come out good or bad, or I just kind of go with the flow or whatever I'm feeling at the moment. And I never thought it was going to be seen, that's for sure. Even I thought maybe at the Living Museum it would be seen, and it did. But yeah, I didn't even think it was going to be. I mean, usually my work's just collecting dust. So unless it's in a show, which I usually don't plan, I just do it and I put it behind me. I think it's a way of just like, it is therapy. It's a way of getting it out and putting it behind you in some way, I think.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to our next artwork that features in the exhibition, The Spirit of Sadness. And if you'd just like to sort of tell us a bit about that piece as well, Susan.
Oh, this was like, this is a triptych, and it was shown in the UK twice. It's actually there now in one of the shows with the Perspective Project. So they do stuff in the UK, and I think it was just really, honestly, if I recall, it was just a frustration of not getting help in the system, the medical model system, and just reflecting on that and just kind of still going through that. I really have to thank my private psychoanalyst, who I'm on a sliding scale fee with him, but he really saved my life in terms of therapy and getting any kind of help, because I was in and out of hospitals for years, and maybe 30 years in the system and on a whole bunch of medication with different diagnoses, and nothing helped. So this was just like a reflection on how I was feeling, and probably at that moment too, like sometimes I still feel stuck, but I thank God that I have a wonderful therapist that is really my lifeline.
That's great to know. Obviously, support is really, really crucial at certain times, but no, it's a really interesting piece of artwork. And, for us in the UK, it would be very interesting to know how the sort of mental health system perhaps differs from the UK to the US. And just, you mentioned that your work is sort of therapeutic. I mean, do you think that by creating this work, you said that you didn't necessarily create it for exhibitions, but, developmentally, are you moving more towards creating work for exhibitions?
Actually, right now I'm just working on my memoir, and if I don't publish it, I'll self-publish it, so that's really where I'm at this summer, just writing a lot. Right. And in the fall, I tend to do theater, so I may be going back to doing theater in the fall. But art is always like something I do at home. It's like a constant thing. And right now, I'm moving into a lot of like spiritual work with my East Indian ancestry, and I want to go back to temple, the Hindu temple that I went to as a teenager a few times. And I did have a great experience last week. I was telling my psychoanalyst, the first time I drew a mandala, and I was like, had like a brief moment where everything clicked in my brain, or it just felt clear. And so I want to just keep doing more of that, because that was an experience I didn't have before.
It can be quite a meditative process, can't it, when you're creating things like that? I think it takes you onto a different sort of process. Maybe is something that Elvira was alluding to, about those oxytocins, perhaps, maybe we don't know, but Elvira was explaining some of that earlier, things that we don't realize are happening in our own bodies, perhaps.
I think there's a stereotype of like, art is calming and it's healing. It's not always that way. Like, you're still sometimes going through your symptoms, if you will, or emotions or whatever when you're creating, and it's different depending on the piece you're working on, or what you're going, how you are at that moment. And so it varies, like
absolutely.
I had someone say the other day, well, you're not nervous when you're working. I'm like, sometimes I am. It varies. So,
and especially when things sort of come out subconsciously, that can sort of maybe just sort of make you rethink things or reevaluate things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to be impulsive, but what I learned through therapy is that you really shouldn't judge yourself and edit yourself, even though we all edit ourselves when we're working. Try not to edit yourself, because my therapist made me realize that we're all always working through something. And it really comes out unconsciously in your art. And I really believe that in retrospect, looking at my work, I didn't always know what something meant until I stopped and reflected on it or talked about it in therapy. So it's all good, Yeah. No one has to see. You can hide it.
Absolutely. It's artwork for you. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just move on to another image, Susan, Girl in Restraints. And if you'd again like to sort of tell us a little bit more about this artwork.
Girl in Restraints is really a series. And and it's just me as a stick figure. I call it girl in restraints because for a number of years I would go to the ER and look to be restrained. I know that sounds crazy, but really it was just a way to get my feelings out. And if I was feeling suicidal, I needed to be in a safe space. So a lot of times I couldn't verbalize what I was feeling, but I knew if I went to the ER and maybe just threw some papers off the nursing station and things like that, acted up, that I'd be in restraints and I'd be able to just like physically fight and get all those emotions out. So that's a huge part of my psych history, just like being in restraints and actually loving it. And to the point where I was so addicted, I would tell my psychoanalyst, like, I miss going to the hospital. I just miss being in restraints. Like I need to get stuff out. And he would just keep encouraging me, like, what do you mean? You're an artist, go do some artwork. And I was like, so now I think girl in restraints replaced me going into the ER and acting up, getting my feelings out that way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so it's almost like that was your safe space, but maybe when you kind of work through arts in the way, you can find kind of other routes for some of that energy and dispersion of that sort of energy.
Yeah. And, I would take, every time I go to the hospital, I would save like my hospital gowns and that I'd like to cut them up. And so girl in restraints actually wears the same hospital gowns that I wore, or the new ones, the fresh ones, the clean ones. They're all kind of clean. But I like to not know where things are going completely and just like go with it, and see what happens, because it's part of, art is really just the artist connecting where they are in their life with what they want to say, I think. Combination of both, Do you
think there's anything in particular that you've learned in using art as a way of expressing yourself? I mean, you've obviously kind of, I think you've been quite developmental, and you've kind of shown this in this particular exhibition about some of your thought processes, and actually being very open about sharing some of that work. So yeah, I mean, do you think you've learned anything over the years in the way that you express yourself through the arts?
Yeah, I think I've learned more and more to shut people out in their negativity, in terms of like, I used to get all the time like, why are you painting that? That's dark. That's depressing. Oh my God, are you going to kill yourself? Why'd you paint yourself hanging yourself? And more I realized that it's actually a good thing to get it out within your artwork. I think it's a safe place. At least for me, it takes time to realize that, that it's a safe place, and that's like that you have to learn that. But that's the alternative to that, is just acting out and hurting yourself or possibly hurting someone else. And we don't want to do that. So I feel I've learned to actually tune other people out, and their opinions don't matter after a while. The only thing that matters is that you do your work and you try not to edit yourself, because we are our worst critics. And so we don't need other people to kind of, the last time I was in the hospital in 2018, I had one of the psychiatrists, the resident psychiatrist, saying, your work's dark and you can't get out of here doing that kind of stuff. Like, he said it in so many words, he didn't spell it out. And so artists are really good at, they're intuitive in picking up what people want from them, especially actors. They will mold themselves to be what you want them to be. And so I found myself drawing flowers just so I could get out of there. But that wasn't honest, you know what I mean? The painting the happy flowers was just to get out, but that's not how I felt. So it's like, when you talk about art therapy, especially in psych wards and stuff, first of all, we don't trust the art therapist, and I'm not a fan of art therapy. But the thing is, like, even at the Live Museum, we were alone. Like, we all had our own rooms, and like, we've never, like, it wasn't a collaboration. There was no art therapy. There was nothing like that. So you don't need to teach anything. You just have to give people the tools and let them do it. You don't have to teach them writing, art, anything. People will naturally gravitate to what they want to say and do. And so I'm kind of just like, I've had so many experiences with being in the hospital, but I guess I am very opinionated about it. And you know, when I ran groups in the hospital, I very briefly, like I did a month-long internship where I ran them very differently than the people with degrees.
Oh yeah.
And I had more of a rapport with people than the people who were medical doctors and people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's quite interesting what you're saying there on all sorts of different levels there, Susan, that, you know, you are creating artwork for yourself as a means of expression. And maybe, again, art therapists base there.
Talk about it. And it's like, you feel like they're analyzing it and they're writing things down. It becomes you versus them and authority. And it's not about talking about it. It's about actually just doing it, you know? And you don't have to know when you're doing the work. You don't, what if I came on here and I had nothing to say about my art, or I was stuck, or I didn't know? That's okay too, you know?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And, you know, presenting your work in an exhibition or as an artist can be extremely exposing for an artist. You know, it's one thing kind of creating work for yourself in your own private space, but then as soon as you start putting it out there, everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah, and that's nice because it's a way of connecting. I mean, nothing's better than that. I mean, I could sometimes I go on a rant and rave in my apartment. The news comes on, I'm reacting to it, and if I do a piece of artwork to express how I'm feeling, it's going to reach an audience still better than me just sitting here and going through my moves.
Absolutely. No, well, it sounds like you're sort of, you know, using sort of all sorts of kind of inspiration from different aspects of your life. But, you know, art certainly has a place in kind of saying something and making things, you know, sort of more visible and raising awareness about a whole range of things. And that's why artists do what they do so well, you know.
I think, you know, I do a lot of talks in New York City, and I can only speak for myself in America, but I really wish that there would be more research in terms of drugs, like long-term. And I also wish that mentally ill people had more rights.
Absolutely.
And I just wish even that my insurance would pay for
therapy
that's not your regular, typical mental health clinic, you know?
Sure.
So I just feel that I'm hoping that it's going to move in a better direction. But, you know, the safe conversation is always stigma. We have to talk about mental illness. I'm very wary of people going in the system, to be honest with you, because my experiences weren't good and they're traumatizing. And I think the first thing is going to a hospital, an ER, and that's not always very helpful for people.
It's kind of frightening experience, isn't it, for people? I mean, I've heard this from a lot of people that we've worked with over the years, you know, and you know, the stories that people have told by being put into institutions. And I'm sure Elvira might say something at the end of the discussion with you, maybe about some of the research that might be happening, you know, into sort of long-term effects of drugs, or maybe she's aware of something. And just to say to the audience as well, while you're watching, please have any questions in mind, because at the end of this session we will be asking you to pop things into the comments function, where we can actually ask Susan some of those questions, or even, you know, comment on some of the discussion today. I'm also interested, Susan, about your particular influences around other artists, and you've alluded to some of those. And you've got this image or this artwork in called Saving Vincent van Gogh. Again, do you want to tell us a little bit about this painting that you've done?
Yeah, you know, that's the thing that racked my brain the most, like trying to pick the images and curate the show. And I did ask a couple of people, like, what do you think? And everybody went back to this piece because it's quintessential mental health, you know, Van Gogh. Everybody associates Van Gogh with mental illness. So I thought it was like one of the safer pieces to put in there, to be honest, that's more relatable and not so much just about me, but other people can relate to that, because sometimes you do have a box of mirrors on your head. And most of the time I feel like I do, but because it's relatable, I chose Van Gogh, and I think I related to Van Gogh in terms of the self-harm, the cutting, and, you know, the burning myself with cigarettes, and just the suicide attempts and things like that. And I I really, you know, is my way of saving him, but also saving myself and the need to be saved myself, and also the wish to just save other people that in crisis. And oftentimes you just feel alone. There's only so much, you know, I tell people all the time, like when you're at your worst moments and you're feeling suicidal, you just have to stay still for like 5 minutes. That's been my experience. Just don't move. Because when you're feeling impulsive and things are going on in your head, your thoughts and your feelings are like racing and they're out of control or whatever's going on. If you could get past those 5 minutes, like physically it can't maintain itself. It's gotta decrease. You really just gotta hold on. And it's really hard, but you have to try to do that.
And you know, that's good advice for kind of others, but also, you know, shows great strength in yourself and resilience to be able to get to a point where you know what to do in those situations when those situations arise. And I was also interested, Susan, about the stages of life image and some of your kind of descriptions around this, and also about the sort of stages of life that we go through from a young person to how I do a lot of work with older people, but also as you grow older, how society actually sees you as an older person. And you've kind of addressed some of this in this image, haven't you?
Yeah, I really think that, you know, we really need to take care of our elderly. We have to respect them. And we can learn from our older folks, but we can also learn a lot from our young folks. So I don't think anyone should be dismissed. And I never underestimate my audience. I know that people are smart, you know, and I know people are intuitive, and I know we all have gifts and talents and whatever that is. And I just feel that we need a lot of love in the world, and we need a lot of respect, and we have to come together. We're all in this together, the whole planet, you know. And I think it, you know, a lot of times when I write, it's just stream of conscious, and sometimes I think about what I'm writing and I remember, sometimes I'm aware of it, and other times I'm just writing to get something out. So I don't remember with this piece what I wrote in the background, but it did have to do with like suicide. You know, one of my suicide attempts was by hanging, and I think it plays out in a lot of the pieces that I've done over the years. The jump rope was a childhood memory where I would be jumping rope and it looked like a rope like that. And I remember the guy down the street with the cleaners kept taking the rope and tying his dog up with it. And what I was upset about was not really losing the jump rope, but I didn't like the dog being tied up, you know? So that was like a memory that I didn't think about until years after the piece. So I was like, wow, I was like looking at the piece, putting it in the show, and I was like, oh my God, and that memory came back.
Once again, how things kind of come out in your subconscious.
Yeah, and then, you know, the middle one with the young lady is just the shallowness of the world we live in with celebrity culture and social media. And it's just so ramped up right now that
interesting.
It's not real life, you know?
Yeah.
It's not real life. It's not something we should aspire to.
Yeah.
It takes us away from God. I feel like it takes me away from God. And I think what keeps me down to earth is just taking care of my cats, feeding the homeless cats in the neighborhood when I can, the pigeons and the squirrels, caring about the environment, things like that, praying, you know. I feel like a lot of times, like, I don't do the work, like I'm just a vessel and God's doing the artwork for me. And we need to get back to love and nature and the environment and things that are important and real contact, and not this. I was hoping the world would change with the pandemic, that we would get out of this like celebrity worshiping. I mean, but we grew up with it, you know. In America, we grew up with Hollywood.
Yeah.
But the middle piece is just like the narcissism and the vanity, even within the mental health system. I've seen a lot of artists just change completely. The minute money comes into play and they have an opportunity to make money, I see their whole personality change. I've seen just, you know, just people who even work in the system, like as soon as you put a camera on them, no one's the same with a camera on them, but you have to, that's a fact. We're not exactly who we are with a camera in front of us right now. And so I don't think people really stop to really think about the effects of that, No,
I think those are some interesting thoughts. And I know certainly Elvira and I have had discussions about the impact of social media and even talked about projects around that. And I think one thing that we have noticed in this country relating to the pandemic is that I do feel people have connected more with nature, that communities have grown stronger. I mean, there have been sort of negative media reports, but generally I think, in crisis, then, the good comes out in people. And I've certainly seen that, in the last year or so, which is really positive. I'm just going to move on to your last piece, because I think this one, Susan, is about kind of where you're going now with some of your work and your Octolove. Again, is it a series, I think, that you'd mentioned? Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, my Octopus art series is a very spiritual fabric series. I kind of equate it with listening to Ravi Shankar, which I do a lot when I'm nervous. I love the sitar. And it's just, when I was a child, my aunt, actually, who's from Trinidad, the West Indies, but she was a practicing Hindu, and her roots are actually from East India on my mother's side. She had a beautiful shrine of Hindu gods, and it really moved me as a child. And the octopus reminds me of the deities, the gods, with all the arms. And so when I started doing the octopus, I also had a dream. And then I also had like a waking, I don't know if it was a hallucination or what, but I swore that Ganesh, which is one of the Hindu gods, I swore that he came to me. And I didn't know what it meant. But part of it for me felt like it meant to go back to my roots and to my religion. And so I'm still like in the process of working through that, but it's brought a lot of light in my life, like going back to my roots and the Hindu religion and reclaiming that.
So it's kind of that point of your life where you're exploring that a lot more. I mean, I've seen a couple of pieces in the exhibition that,
having that vision or hallucination or whatever it was, and Ganesh coming to me, I feel that the octopus is Ganesh. And he holds the shell and stuff, if you read about that. But it's brought a lot of color and happiness in my life, like finding that spiritual side of myself again, really embracing it. And because with mental illness, it's like as soon as you talk about God, psychiatry thinks you're crazy. They automatically think that it's a symptom, and it's not necessarily a symptom where it's bad. I mean, because you can believe in science and God and medicine all at the same time. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna keep working. I've been doing like mandalas, and I have like a whole series of octopus that are not in the video you're gonna see. But my partner did the music. I live with him. He's a wonderful all-around artist. And a friend also collaborated on it. But my partner edits my videos on my YouTube channel, which is under my stage name, Shyla Idris. But it was a lot of fun. I didn't, I was a little self-conscious, like filming it, but it was a lot of fun. The music's hilarious.
Yeah, we like it. Well, on that note, should we play it? And then actually, whilst that is playing, again, I'll say to the audience, please do make comments, or if you've got any questions for Susan, put them in the chat function. We've got a few minutes to think about that. And then what we will do is go to a panel. And again, if you've got any questions for either Susan, Elvira, or Lou, or myself, this will give you an opportunity to ask those questions. So, Susan, I'm just going to play your Octolove video for everybody, and then we'll move into the last part of the session. Okay.
You know you're crazy, but you don't. you're crazy. You know it. You know it, but you don't know it. No, you don't. No, you know you're crazy, but you don't know it. Oh, no, you know you don't. You know you don't. No, you don't. You're crazy. Don't you know it? No, you're crazy, but you don't know it. Know it. Crazy. You know you're crazy, but you don't. You know it. You know you're crazy, but you don't. No.
Damn, it's really hard to get the needle through here because I painted the background really thick and the acrylic's like plastic. And that's why it's been taking so long. It's like I'm fighting with it, you know? And this part's, really hard compared to some of the other pieces that are just on, a smoother background. Anyway, this is the octopus eye. It's one of his eyes. And then the tentacles, like, I keep swirling the tentacles because it's just fun to do and it looks cool. And it just, it adds to I guess how I'm feeling. Huh? Chaos and I'm obsessed with the octopus now. I'm just doing a whole bunch in the series. I don't know where it's going, but I'm just obsessed with it. Octopus love. Octopus love. Get out. Yeah. These two guys love each other here. It's really cool. And of course, when I wake up, I'll do the next one tomorrow. Start the next one off. But I'm excited about photographing it. That big stapler. I call it a staple gun. Put it on the wall. Okay. I'm done. Okay, I'll put it in the bed so you can really see. Oop. Okay. Aren't they cute?
Brilliant. I think that's a really nice kind of little film there, Susan. It gives us a really good idea of you and your artwork. And I'm not sure if your cat looks that impressed though right throughout,
No, it's not. Cray is just like, come on, hang out with me and stop doing that.
But no, thank you. If anybody's got any questions, as I've mentioned, please do pop them in the chat function. Alvira, unfortunately, has just dropped out, but she did actually pop a question in that I'd like to start with, Susan. But firstly, thank you so much for your inspiring insight into your artwork. It really is a privilege to have you here talking to us today. As I say, it's just so nice when we connect with artists that, we've known for a long time and you've exhibited work with us. So it's really nice to get to know you better. Elvira just wanted to ask you a question about what do you think your artwork means to others, which is quite a difficult one to probably answer, but I don't know if you've thought about that at all.
Well, I hope it means good things. I really hope that people like it. I think when I was younger, I didn't care as much, but now I realize how important it is as a tool for connecting with other people. And I think we have an obligation to each other. I think the pandemic has taught us that our job really is to leave the planet in a better place. and to leave the world in a better place and to inspire others. And so I hope that I can inspire other people to speak their truth, even when other people don't agree with it, and to find a way to heal yourself, because art is very healing, and it really helped me. It continues to help me, and it never lets me down. So I don't think art will ever let you down. Other people may, or other things may, but it's something you can always go to. So I'm just hoping that, you know, it will inspire others, hopefully. And yeah, I'm just trying to spread love, you know, while still healing myself.
You know, and I think it's great that you're so open with your artwork, and we've really appreciated your kind of honesty. And as you say, you know, it's not always that rose-tinted world that we like to kind of, but, you know, there are challenges there that people can learn from, and especially that mentioning that art can be such a healing process. Elvira's back with us. So Elvira, I've just asked Susan your question that you put to her, but Lou and Elvira, I don't know if you've got any other thoughts, comments or questions from the conversation that we've had with Susan today.
I had a question actually. It was just, you said right at the beginning that it was a real ambition of yours to have a solo show. I was just wondering, now that you've kind of achieved that, you know, with us, what's going to be next on your ambition list?
Well, I could definitely retire now. Actually, in all honesty, I had like major events that I worked on in my, you know, I never really thought of myself as an artist. I feel like it's such a pretentious word, but the main thing I wanted to do was my solo play. So I did a one-woman show about my life. There was a theatrical show, and that was a huge landmark in the healing process and telling my story. And this show I look at as a retrospective in terms of leaving all that darkness behind me. And that was the goal, to say, okay, I accomplished this professionally, but also I can leave that behind me. And now I also made a documentary short film about my life. And then I was like, nah, I can put that behind me. So I keep looking for ways to tell my story. That's what I realized over the years. Now the last thing I really want to do is either publish or self-publish my memoir, in the hopes of really just leaving it behind me. Like, I want to be happy. I want to, you know, be more social. I want to feel better. I'm also trying to get into a research study right now for psychedelic medicine. I have hope for that. I don't know if I'm going to get in, but that's, you know, and then I'm going to just keep continuing going to see my psychoanalyst outside the system, because that's my main source of support. But in terms of like the solo show, it's been a dream to kind of like, it's been like I'm the checklist, you know? And also because, you know, I never thought that I would get to this point where I'd be showing my work and doing talks and things like that. You know, it's not something I went to school for. It's just something that was a part of me. So thank you, everybody. I'm just so grateful. It is a dream come true, and I'm very, very grateful. Happy to be here.
It's very inspiring, Susan, and I just love the way you're, you know, using other art forms to kind of support your thinking and your work, you know, coming back to your roots with your acting and the writing as well. So, you know, we of course wish you good luck with that. And just to say, we do have a couple of questions actually from the audience. So Harry wanted to know, in your personal experience, have your mental health issues helped or hindered your creativity, would you think?
I know that there's a stereotype, I mean, about, I know that people link a connection between art and mental health. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't tell you how many talks I've done with famous people and writers who will sell that. Because at the end of the day, everything is just a marketing tool. Everything is a selling tool. I don't know if that's true or not. You know, I'm not a doctor, and I don't know scientifically if there's a link. I can tell you that it's been both. In all honesty, it's hindered me in some respects, even with my art, and at other times it's helped me. So it depends like where I was in my life. And I think it's a matter of like working through it. And the more you do it, the more you realize that things are not controlling you, and you have more control over your feelings and the things you are doing. So it's really been both. I think when I was younger, it has been a little bit paralyzing, and now I know that no matter how I feel, I can always work. But that takes practice. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love like being blunt and being honest about it, because we have these romantic ideas, and it's like at the end of the day, somebody's selling something, or I'm trying to sell myself, and I don't want to do that, you know? Like, I want to be honest with the audience.
That's really interesting, Susan. Thank you for answering that. We've also got a question from Amelia, who said, what's the best piece of advice that you've been given during your life or career as an artist? And do you have any advice for upcoming artists?
I think it's like what I said earlier, where it's, you know what, it's not about money. It's not about fame. You have to do it because you love it, you know? And there have been so many times in my life where I'm like, I don't want to do this. You know, in a perfect world, if I wasn't mentally ill, I don't even think I'd be an artist, to be honest with you. I'd be going to school and work and be married and have kids or something else.
You really think that? That's quite interesting.
I think so, yeah. Like, I really think art comes from pain. At least that's been my experience. Real art comes from pain. And if you could do something else, do it. But
that's really interesting.
The backup art is there. That's how I feel about it.
But you might have been, you know, well, we're all speculating here on, you know, if I could have lives in different ways, you know, we think and imagine. But, you know, I think creativity has a way of coming out in.
You don't choose it; it chooses you. It just comes back to it, because I need to create.
Yeah,
I think I'm always going to need to create, and I don't know why. It's just something
an urge that you have. Yeah, as an artist.
I think when I was 3, like when I started working, I didn't, you know, I didn't talk. I pulled out my hair and I would stare into space, and I didn't know that I had anxiety back then, and I didn't have a way of communicating. Like, I just didn't talk to people up until my 20s. Like, I had to go to therapy to learn how to talk. Like, when I started psychoanalysis, I would knock my head against the wall. Like, that's literally what I was doing, and I don't even know how this guy put up with me. And I remember just calling my therapist like 11:30 at night many times, feeling suicidal. And he had to teach me how to put, you know, how to use words and how to express myself with words. And so I do feel like it's a way you have to teach people, or you have to teach men, quote unquote. I don't like to use, you know, labels or stigma or anything like that. And I think the biggest stigma actually comes from psychiatrists and the mental health system. I really think that that's the thing that, if we're going to talk about stigma, that's the one thing that no one's talking about. These labels and these diagnoses are the biggest, you know, things that stigmatize people before we even start doing it to ourselves. But so that's got to change. But
very complex, isn't it?
Psychiatrists mostly just see you as a disease. That's how they're trained to see you. They don't see you as a human being.
Yeah. Multiple layers.
But I think in terms of like being an artist, you got to be a bit rebellious. You know, if I wasn't rebellious in the system, I wouldn't have survived. I'd be locked up in a state hospital right now, because I tell you something, that's exactly where they want me. And that's exactly where they want me to be. But I've always looked outside the box for ways to help myself. And I learned a lot along the way. Even when I was training the police for a year in terms of going to the police academy and telling them to stop them from shooting us, you know? Because 1 in 4 people that are shot by the police in America have a disability or mental health issue. And I could tell you that I got a lot of pushback from that. And I just have to put that out there, because we're still in crisis, you know?
That's a fantastic body of work, that is, Susan. Fantastic, you know, raising that awareness. But, you know, I just, you know, you've absolutely come on an amazing journey from, you know, the sounds of things. You know, you've obviously, you know, shown great strength and resilience throughout and in your work. It's very inspiring. And also, you know, in the way that you you know, do the talks, relate to others, and can give advice to others, you know, in similar positions. So very inspiring today. Lou, I don't know if you've got any more thoughts or anything before we go.
The only thing I was interested to know was, are there any artists, you know, in New York where you are, or over here in the UK, who you've seen who are inspiring you at the moment, that, you know, perhaps we should all go and seek out and find some inspiration?
You know what? I really don't follow stuff. A lot of times, like, I'm still interested in seeing like acting performances. And few and far between with that too. But I really don't follow art. But there was actually, my psychoanalyst went to the Met recently, and he was saying that he saw the Alice Neal exhibit, and I didn't even know who that was. So I looked it up, and I looked on her website, and I was like, oh wow, she's really good. And she's like a famous American artist, but I didn't know. And so I know that's kind of looking back. But I saw her on the Tonight Show. I found a YouTube clip, and she was hilarious. She has a great personality with Johnny Carson. It was just so funny. But, yeah, you know, you know what? I love Marlon Brando later in life. That's who I really love. Like, if you see him on Larry King Live, that's one of my favorite videos. And, you know, I know he's an actor, but he just, like, pulls the curtain. He just, like, tells it to you straight, what the business is like, what acting is like, the art is like. It's all the same thing. And there's no mystery to it. There's no, like, you know what I mean? It's not to be worshipped, really. But you really just have to get down to the truth of creating, and just have a little humility. That's my thing. Just always have humility in life, because one minute you're up, next minute you're down, and we're not here forever. We're not going to live forever. So, but if you want to know anything about art or acting, I suggest you just watch Marlon Brando later in life. He's a great inspiration.
Well, so thank you, Susan. On that note, that's a great piece of advice. So I'd really like to thank everybody for watching tonight. Big thanks, obviously, to Susan, Lou, and Elvira tonight. And also behind the scenes, I need to say a big thank you to Joe Pick from City Arts for making it run so smoothly. This will go live onto our social media pages after this, so you can catch it there. And also, please do have a look on our City Arts website at Susan's exhibition, which will be showing until the 10th of July. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.